Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna step you guys through how we deploy a full MERN stack application to Heroku. So far, when it's come to our React applications, we've just deployed them using GitHub pages. But now we have a full MERN stack application, which means we have either Mongo or MySQL, we have Node and Express, and we have React all in one big application. And we want to be able to deploy this to Heroku so that way other people can view it. So there are a few different steps here. This is being recorded, and I'll upload it to YouTube and Panopto after the recording is done, so that way you guys can watch it as you go through the process. The first thing that we want to do is I want to go ahead and get some things set up. I want to first set up my repo. I've already done this part of the process. I've already set up a repo, but we need a repository to host this entire application, this entire MERN stack application. So I've set up a repo. I've called it React Notes app, and I haven't uploaded anything to it yet. And that's fine. I'll do that once we're done setting up Heroku. We also want to make sure that when we create this GitHub repo, that we add a .gitignore file for Node. So that way our Node modules don't get uploaded. The next thing I want to do is I want to come in to Heroku and make a new Heroku app. So I'm going to come up here to the upper right-hand corner where we have this new button, click that, and click Create New App from the drop-down menu that appears. I'm going to type in an app name, React Notes app. That's probably taken. Oh, wow, that is not taken. And I'm going to hit Create App. So now I have a Heroku app set up. So now there are two more things that I want to do. The first thing that I want to do is I want to link this Heroku app to my GitHub repo. And then the second thing is I want to set up either Mongo or MySQL. So I'm going to, here in the Deploy tab, up here at the top of the Heroku website, I'm going to come down to where it says Deployment Method, the Deployment Method section, and click on GitHub, Connect to GitHub. So you've probably already connected your apps to GitHub before from Heroku, but if you have not, it's probably going to ask you to log in at this point. So I'm going to scroll down to the next section where it says connect to GitHub, and there's this little section that says search for a repository to connect to. So I'm going to do a search for my repo, which I called React Notes app. Hit search, and then it's going to appear here, and I'm going to hit the connect button. So now I've linked my Heroku app that I just created to my GitHub repo. So whenever I make changes to my GitHub repo, it's going to then reflect in Heroku. There's nothing else that I need to do here for the deployment page on our Heroku app. Next, I want to come into Resources, this Resources tab up here at the top. And I want to come down to this Add-ons section. And this is where we're going to add either MySQL or Mongo. This particular React application uses Mongo. So I'm going to do a search for mlab. And I'm going to click the mlab MongoDB option that appears to add the mlab MongoDB database to this particular Heroku app.
If we were doing SQL,
yeah, if you're using SQL, you would just do JAWS instead, or your personal SQL preference, whatever that might be. So then it's going to come up with this little window here. I'm going to hit provision. And I get this notification that the add-on Mongo Lab has been installed. So I can click on the mlab MongoDB link here. And I need to come and add a new user. So I'm going to add a database user, give my database user a username and a password. And create. Next, I'm going to copy and paste this link where it says to connect using a driver via the standard MongoDB URI. I'm going to copy that link here. And then I'm going to come into my MERN application. And wherever I have Mongoose, the mongoose.connect method, I'm going to pop in that URI. And then I'm going to change this DB user tag to whatever my username was, and my DB password tag to whatever my password was. And then I'm going to save that. All right. So up to this point, we've created a GitHub repo. We've created a Heroku app. We've linked our Heroku app to our GitHub repo. We have added mlab for Mongo. And then I've gone into mlab, made a new database user, copied that address, and popped it inside of my application wherever I have my mongoose.connect method. So really quick, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to test this application just to make sure that it's working. So I'm going to run yarn start in my terminal. I didn't get any errors, so that's a good thing. Oh my gosh, why is React so slow? So how are y'all? It's a good day. Yeah, starting the development server for the first time always takes forever. Okay, here we go. So here's my little React Notes app. I'm gonna add a note. Hit submit, I'm gonna refresh the page, and the note's still there. Okay, so we successfully added our database. We're actively using our mlab MongoDB database. So now I can go ahead and build my React app and then deploy this entire MERN application to GitLab. So I'm going to hide Firefox there. I'm going to close out of my application in the terminal, and I'm going to run yarn build and hit enter. So what yarn build is going to do is it's going to run the build script, and it's going to take our React application and all of its complicated component files and turn it into just a few simple files that any web browser can view. Now we can double check that this worked by coming into the client folder on the side, and we should see a build folder. And if we see that build folder, we know that the build was successful and our built application is there and ready. Now, before I go ahead and push this up to GitHub, there are two things that I want to check really quick. Actually, there are three things. In my server.js file, I want to make sure that wherever I have port, wherever I define my port variable, that I have port set equal to process.env.port or whatever port I want to use locally. This is going to allow Heroku to designate the port it wants this application to use. We have this if statement. So if process.env.node env is production, then app.use express.static client/build. So all this is doing is it's saying if the node environment is production, so Heroku is going to start up this app and it's going to tell this app, hey, I'm running you in production mode. This is the main event. And so if that's the case, it's going to serve up anything in that client/build folder as a static asset. So that way, if we look in our build folder really quick, we have some static files here. We've got all these JavaScript files. So that way, when the web browser requests for these particular JavaScript files, the server knows exactly how to serve them. And then finally, and we already did this, but we just want to double check, we want to make sure that we have our Mongo URI in here. If we were using MySQL, we would want to make sure that our MySQL connection information was correct as well. So all of that is good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and do a git add a git commit m. Yes, if you're using SQLize. And then I'm going to do a git push origin master, hit enter. Now, because I have linked Heroku and my GitHub repo together, when I do this deploy, it should automatically deploy to Heroku as well. So let's come into our browser here. I'm going to go to the overview tab in Heroku. And in a minute, I should see a notice here in latest activity that says that the build has started. Okay, this is taking longer than I wanted, so I'm going to force a deploy. So I'm going to come here into the deploy tab in Heroku. I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom of this page, and there's going to be a section called manual deploy. And I'm going to click the deploy branch button next to master. So it's going to take whatever's in the master branch, and it's going to deploy it to my Heroku app. I'm also just now seeing why it didn't deploy when I uploaded to GitHub. I forgot to click the enable automatic deploys button. So in this automatic deploys section, when we're setting up the Heroku app for the first time, we want to enable automatic deploys so that way any changes to our GitHub repo will immediately be reflected on our Heroku app. All right, so this is deploying. I can see the build process down here at the bottom. So it's just chugging along.
Just a question. So this looks like a refresher on how we define growth, but GitHub pages. Is there any, as the branch that we want to watch, that gets built,
No, so in this case, because we're deploying a full MERN stack application, we're not using GitHub Pages anywhere in this process. GitHub Pages is only for if you have a React application with no backend that you want to deploy. Heroku is going to require us to have a node backend. All right, so it says it deployed to Heroku. Cross your fingers. I'm going to hit the view button, and let's see if our application works. And there's our application. And we can see the note here that I had added locally. We're using the same database regardless of if we are viewing the site locally or if we're viewing it on Heroku as a deployed application. So my note is still there. I'm going to go ahead and add one more just to test. Refresh the page, delete a note, and everything seems to work. So it's a good number of steps. Where this differs from deploying to Heroku normally is now, before we push to GitHub, we're just going to run yarn build. That's the big change here. So we're going to run yarn build right before we upload to GitHub, and it's going to take our React application, it's going to convert it into some built files that any web browser can view, and then we're going to push that up to our GitHub repo. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Very good question. Every time you make a change, you are going to have to run yarn build again before you push it to GitHub. You had a question? Oh, okay. Somebody over here? Yeah. Wait, say that again?
Do you recommend training service?
I normally don't do that. Do you have any input on that?
I mean, it can increase the performance. I mean, it just all it does is cache stuff offline. So,
Okay, so it's
there's no, yeah, it's a good step to take, but it's not a necessary step to take.
anything else? All right, I'll upload this video to YouTube and Panopto right now. And if you have any questions, just feel free to Slack us. And I believe now is project work time, right?
Let's actually, why don't we go ahead and break for lunch? Just good natural breaks. We don't break your workflow when you're project.